So, what do you mean by free consent? It means a parties who are agreed with each other without any kind of pressure or misguide, then the agreement would be result of a free consent. It's very simple. It's a very law is always a common sense. If you apply your common sense, the concept becomes very easy to you. So free consent, what do you mean by free consent? Consent means something you are going to agree with. Free consent matlab it would be something which is not bound by anything, be it a misguide or a pressure or whatever. There are certain terms which have been mentioned in the Contract Act which makes a consent free. So we have to check whether all the conditions fulfilled, then the consent would be called as free consent. Consent means consensus ad idem. There is one terminology we are going in law. You are going to learn innumerable terminologies to make it more easy. It is kind of some Latin word which means some conceptual understanding in terms of law. So consensus ad idem means between parties, which means that there must be a complete understanding of each other's mind between them. Consensus ad idem. That means meeting of minds. It is not M, it is M. I'll correct it. It would be here. It is not M, it is I D E M. Idem. So what does it mean? If you are explaining me, suppose ma'am, I am going to sell you my phone. I said, okay, I'll buy your phone of 15,000. But you have two phones, but you haven't explained me which phone you are going to give me. So I must have imagined that the phone which I like that you have, you're going to give me that. However, you think that you're going to give me some another phone. So there is uncertainty, right? So we are not having the same thing in the same sense. You are so thinking that you are giving me phone A, but I am thinking that you are giving me phone B. So that is something which makes a contract not okay. Why? Because I am thinking something other to buy, you are thinking something else to give me. So there is something called meeting of mind, that you have to understand that both parties who are giving and who is agreeing must have the same sense of understanding of the contract, same sense of terms and understanding, terms and terms and conditions understanding of the contract. So that is what important. And for the free consent, what is a consent has been given in section 13. Two or more persons are said to consent when they agree on the same thing in the same sense. That means consensus ad idem in English law. And what is the free consent? Free consent has been provided in section 14, which said that when a consent, which is 13, when a section 13 complies with without any cause of coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation or mistake. I am going to explain the same in just very easy, but we are going to study each and every concept in detail, because each and every concept has been explained in the Contract Act and has very important role to play. So for the time being, for explaining you the essential condition, I will explain you in the gist. What is coercion? Coercion is pressure. For example, I ask you that you do me a favor, you bring some stuff for me, otherwise I'll fail you, or I won't give you good marks in your assignment. So I am pressurizing you to do something, right? So this contract between us won't be have a validity. Second is undue influences. Undue influences happens when there are certain relationship. For example, presumed relationship of senior junior, mother father and son, or say employee, where you know that the other person has some authority over the second and the second won't be able to speak something. For example, this authority of LCID ask me anything to do which I would not have opted if otherwise I won't be an employee in LCID. So this is kind of undue influences playing a role. Coercion and undue influences are very much closely related, but in case of coercion, it is something which is very not related with any relation between the two parties, but only the pressure with required. However, in undue inflation, there must be a presumed relation and the authority in the relations. Third is the fraud. For example, the person who is giving me phone give me a phone, shows me a phone, but give me the another phone. That means he has committed similar phone who is not, which phone is not good enough, and I cannot discriminate whether this phone is the same phone. The person is said to commit a fraud to me. Why? Because fraud is something which is a deceitful thing done to me, right? So this would be a fraud. Fourth is misrepresentation. For example, the other person, I ask certain questions that its battery backup is okay, is it the phone's screen is okay, is it working okay? The person said me, yes ma'am, it's everything is fine in this phone, you won't be having any problem with that. The person has done a misrepresentation to me. He has represented something which is not right. Fourth is a mistake. Mistake is something just like in the case where I thought that the person is going to give me phone B, but the person is intended to give me phone A. So there is a mistake in understanding, so it cannot be a valid consent. So when a consent is free from all this, it is said to be a concept, it is said to be a free consent. So free consent is also an essential element for the contract. Sixth one is the lawful object and consideration. I have told you in the previous class as well that anything which is unlawful in itself cannot comply in contract act. For example, I'll say I will kill you, Mr. X, if you will not give me 1,000 bottle of wine. So here, the giving of 1,000 bottle of wine is not unlawful, but the killing is unlawful. So if I'm putting any terms or conditions which is unlawful, then the contract itself becomes void. For example, I ask you all, do something, do a theft from your home and pay me some money so that I can give you good numbers in your assignment. Here both the things which I am doing and which you are doing, both are unlawful because they are against social policy. So this would be also not a valid contract. So it need to be taken care of whether the object of the contract or the consideration of the contract is lawful or not. Seventh is not expressly declared void. For example, A agrees to do something. For example, A agrees to do a business in Jammu and Kashmir, right? But and everything was planned. Suppose A and B make a partnership business and plan to do some business in Jammu and Kashmir. But in due course of time, the government of India declares that any business done in Jammu and Kashmir is void because the business can be done only by the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So our plan of setting business in the Jammu and Kashmir would be hampered. However, as we have planned, we moved to Jammu and Kashmir and we started doing business there. But that would be expressly against the law and hence becomes void, because though practicing any business is not void on the face of it, like it is not barred to do any kind of business, but our government has declared that doing business in Jammu and Kashmir can be done by only the people who are residing in Jammu and Kashmir. So as we are not resident of Jammu and Kashmir, if we does any business, it becomes unlawful because it has been expressly declared void. It has been expressly declared that these are the conditions which you need to follow out, and if you don't follow it cannot cover the concept of contract time. Eighth is a certain formality, necessary fulfillment of certain formalities for making certain specific type of contract. For example, a contract made above 500 rupees need to be written and registered. For example, if I sell my house to you, I said buy my house, you said okay, I'm buying your house in this much amount of money. But we do not have anything in written document, written format. So whether I would be able to prove it, that whether this contract even happened between us, it depends. For example, in Transfer of Property Act, if you have studied I think you have studied in third semester. Oh, you are going to study in third semester. So I'll explain you what it is. So there is one law which says that whenever you does any commercial transaction of movable property or immovable property worth rupees 500 and above, you need to have registration, you need to have written documents of that transaction. So any certain formalities, if mentioned in any law, that must be fulfilled. So you have to check whether this contract, whatever is taking place, any formalities have been fulfilled or not. Ninth is certainty of meaning. The terms and condition of a contract must be clear, complete, and certain. If the terms are uncertain, the agreement becomes void. For example, A promised to sell 200 books to B without specifying their titles. So this would be a very vague concept. For example, I have a bookshop. You ask me, ma'am, give me 10 books. I have given you 10 books. That books names have been not decided between us. But you said that then you come down to me and said, ma'am, I asked you to give me this kind of 10 books, not this kind of 10 books. So that would arise many confusion amongst us, and that would not be a clear direction given to me. So I have given you any kind of 10 books because I have a bookshop or anything like that. So there need to be a certainty. In this example also, A promised to sell 200 books to B. So A is promising to sell 200 books but without specifying their titles. So how can it be said that it would be even possible to express this contract? For example, you have told me that, ma'am, I'm going to give you my phone worth rupees 15k. I said, okay, I'll buy it for 15k. But I didn't ask you which phone you're going to give me, A or B. So that means that the contract becomes uncertain. I thought B, you thought A. So it won't be a valid contract because it lacks certainty. Fifth is the possibility of performance. A valid contract must be capable of being performed. An agreement to do an impossible act is void. If the act is legally or physically impossible to perform, the agreement cannot be enforced by law. For example, A agrees with B to discover a treasure by magic. The agreement is not possible, not existable, hence not valid. For example, I told you that you do I'm not making fun of it, I'm just giving an example. If I am also spiritual, but if suppose I say, read, do 100 mantras, Gayatri mantras daily, and you will pass your contract exam. Don't study, don't do assignment or something. So whether it is right, whether it is possible. So we have done with today's lecture. Thank you. And just remember all the 10 conditions required for this fulfillment of a contract act. It is very important to understand basic first. So thank you and see you soon.